let's do this. So
Awesome.
thank you for being here. And it's nice to meet you virtually, why don't
Yeah,
why don't we start doing this by you just kind of give a small little snapshot background so the viewers kind of know who we're talking to here.
sure. My name is Sedruola Maruska. Most people call me Sadie. All my family, everybody who knows me calls me Sadie. So if you call me Sedruola, I know that you probably haven't met me to know that you can call me Sadie.
Gotcha.
I'm a diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice consultant and coach. And my focus is helping entrepreneurs and small businesses, uh, excuse me, helping entrepreneurs and small businesses create cultures from the very beginning that will attract the diversity that they want. And so I work with them to audit whatever procedures and processes they have in place, how their businesses work, and say, hey, this is how you can do a little bit better and attract what you want to attract. I do that because I don't think people are aware that 99% of businesses in the United States are small businesses. And if small businesses relinquish the responsibility to large businesses, then there's a whole huge section of the population that is not working towards change in that way. And so my thing is, no, we got to work with the small businesses. They may not have a budget to hire someone on,
Yeah.
but I'm here to help from the outside. And so it's a lot more cost efficient to have me help and be able to move in that direction and do that work. So because they're not exempt,
Hmm.
just so they know.
Gotcha. I got a couple questions about that, but I want to take it
Yeah.
back a little bit. And how did your lifespan, your story, how did you get in to this position or find yourself in this far in this life or whatever?
Um, in the work that I do,
Yeah. Yeah. How did you
yeah.
do stuff?
So in December of 2017, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh no.
And at that time, of course, in the doctor's office, as soon as she said you have invasive lobular carcinoma, my mind was left the room and I was off on a trip thinking, oh my gosh, I have two little kids. What about my kids? Because basically you go from zero to death. That's at least what happened with me. And at the same time, I also said, if you're not dead, if this is not a death sentence, are you happy with what you're doing in your life? And the answer came back a resounding no. So at that time, I decided that I really needed to listen to myself and move in a direction that felt more authentic and more of what I wanted to put out into the world or what I was called to put out into the world. And so I started coaching. And then it was personal development. And then I started coaching for business. It was very fluid. I allowed everything to just kind of flow. If it wasn't working in one way, I just kind of moved it to the next thing. And then I started dabbling a little bit in diversity, but then George Floyd happened. And I had already told a lot of people that I wanted to also do speaking engagements. And so at that point in time, a number of people asked me to speak at different places. And I did. I was on panels and it clicked. And then people started asking me to talk about diversity and inclusion. And they started to tap me to do a lot of different things that before it seemed really forced and heavy, and then this just started to flow, and I realized that this was the space, this was my space. So I went with that. I started a podcast in 2020. It has really been the one of the best things that I've done in this because it's helped me to meet so many amazing people, and it just keeps growing and flowing. And although it's evolving, it's no longer shifting. It's simply growing in the way that it is.
So when you first started out, talking and being on these panels, there's a lot of tough conversations during these times, especially like you just brought up the George Floyd incident.
Yeah.
Was that something you just came natural to, or was it kind of hard to put yourself into that type of position?
Well, it flowed.
Okay.
If I'm honest, it really just flowed. And the thing about it is that there's a perspective that I have simply by the fact that I am a Black woman in this world, walking around in this world. And the perspective that I have is usually one that is counter to the norm of what most people see. And because I have that perspective, it's not hard for me to say, if you do that, these are some of the things that I see, the challenges that are going to happen here. These are some of the things that you're gonna butt up against. And so I've, someone asked me, what is the thing that you didn't know before you started this that you wish you'd known?
Mhm.
And to me, it's that I'm constantly taking in information and learning and reading. And because a lot of the information that I am working with was not taught in school and it was
Sure.
not really taught along the way. It's always something that I have to, besides my lived experience, I have to tap into and learn and so that I can draw the lines and equate, well, this is what happened back then, and this is why things are the way that they are right now. So it's a constant learning process and processing and all of that.
One question just came to mind is that, I've noticed myself that in our today's age or society or technological advances, whatever you want to say, is that with social media, screens everywhere. I mean, do you ever feel overwhelmed, I guess, or overloaded with information? Because I'll just notice myself, I'll go on Twitter or something, I'll start going down reading tweets, and it's like I'll see whatever X person said, then I jump over to somewhere else, start reading this comment, and then it's just almost 30 minutes later. It's like, what did I just do?
Exactly.
And I've lost 30 minutes of my time.
Yes, absolutely. I feel that a lot, which is why I have been very intentional about creating boundaries for myself personally and also from the external world from all of that information because what I do is already emotionally taxing a lot of the time. Sometimes I'm digging into things, and my emotions are involved because it feels very personal. So because of that, I've made it a point to put in boundaries where there are certain days of the week where I don't talk to anyone from the outside.
Okay.
I do not watch the news. I get headlines and when I'm on social media, I'll set a timer or sometimes I'm really focused on this is the only thing that I'm doing here right now and I'm out of here. Because it's really important for me to protect my energy, to protect my emotions, my psyche, all of it, because it is, like you said, constant, coming. And there's always something that I can make commentary about. And I don't want to always be on and doing that.
Well, that's a great habit, I guess you could say, that you created for yourself. And I would say, in my experience, I worked with a few other people, and I haven't seen them set boundaries like that for themselves. And it takes discipline.
I had to learn to do that. I had to, and to be honest, there are days where I really have to actively, like out loud, say, "You are not answering that email right now." Because it is after 5 and you do not want to set that precedent. There are a lot of things that we do that we don't realize that we're setting precedents for so that people know, oh, whenever I email her, she's going to email me back.
Right.
And I've made it very, I don't return emails on the weekends and I don't do that in the evenings. And then there are 2 days during the week where I'm just not outward facing unless it's absolutely necessary. But I don't fill up those days with meetings and or anything. They're all for me to do learning, to do the work that I need to do for my business, and to simply have that that kind of, protected space. So, but it's not easy. I'll tell you, it's not easy.
Guarantee. I mean, there's a book that I read. It's probably it's been more than 6 months ago. It's called, I think it was called Addiction by Stephen Alter, and he actually talked about how people are so addicted to work email right now that they feel like they have to, on the weekends. It's like you said, like an email comes in, I got to get it done right now,
Yeah.
and just the mental health it plays or the it plays on people now. It's like people don't know what
Yeah.
they're doing to themselves. It's just
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. I don't know.
And I think that it's something that I learned also having gone through cancer, knowing that I had to really slow down and I had to really give myself a chance to heal. And I also know that stress is one of those things that it wreaks havoc on your body. We talk about high blood pressure, heart conditions, uh, diabetes, all these things are caused by stress in the body and as well as cancer.
Mhm.
And so for me, I was like, I don't want to go through that again. I'm not excited to try to go through that again. So I need to be very intentional in the ways that I protect my body and I protect myself and my psyche. And so, whenever I'm finding myself kind of creeping back into that, I'm like, no, because it's a stressor. You have to mitigate that. You have to reduce that and not allow it to happen.
Yeah. Oh, it's what some people just can't not allow it. But
Yeah.
that book is called Irresistible by Adam Alter. So sorry, I don't want to make sure I clarified that. But
Irresistible.
yeah.
Yeah.
So can we talk about your cancer story a little bit, or is that
Sure.
okay? So you said it was in 2017, correct?
Yes.
And is this something that is it in your family? Does that run in your family, or is it just out of the norm? Just came up one day, or and you just decided, or what?
Yeah, it's so in November of 2017 I went to a gynecological exam.
Okay.
And my nurse practitioner, she was doing a breast exam and she says, this doesn't feel right to me. And for me, I was, at the time I was 49 years old and I was like, my breasts are just getting old. They're just getting, because it's a thing. They get fibrous when you get older sometimes. And I was like, to me, I was like, well, that must be what it is. Because I'd been having regular mammograms and ultrasounds for years because I've always had very busy breasts, is what we call them.
Hmm.
So she said, I'm going to call this doctor. She doesn't usually take people unless they've been diagnosed, but call her. I'm going to call her office and I'm going to let them know that you're going to be calling them and they'll fit you in.
Okay.
About a month later is when I finally did call and make an appointment just because of life. And so I called and she said, I would like for you to go in and get fresh scans and then come in on this date, which was December 6th, 2017. So I said, great. So the previous week I went in, had the mammograms, had the scans and everything. And so I went into her office on December 6th and we're looking at the scans, both of us. And she says, I don't see anything here. I said, neither do I, because I've been looking at my scans for years. So I kind of knew what to look for.
Sure.
And she said, but when I look at your breasts, they look different. I said, yeah, they do look different. She said, so I'm going to do a biopsy. I said,
Okay.
great. Right there that day, we did a punch biopsy. That was a Wednesday. The Thursday, I went to the Massachusetts Conference for Women. No pain. I was fine. Everything was good. I went about my business. The Friday, I went in for a needle biopsy on the left side. So this was the right side. I went in for a needle biopsy on the left side. And because they'd found something on the left side and they wanted to biopsy. So they did the needle biopsy. And Friday afternoon, I was in so much pain. Saturday, I was in so much pain until Saturday evening. It wasn't until Sunday afternoon that I was okay, which was great because I was going to a Christmas party on Sunday evening. And I told my husband, I remember telling my husband, I said, I don't know what she biopsied on the right side, but it was not flesh because the pain that I have on this left side was 20 times more than what I felt on the right side. So anyway, we went about our business. Then on Wednesday, December 13th, I went in to see the doctor for the results of the biopsy because she wanted to have both biopsies done before we went in, and as well as everything.
Sure.
And so my husband went with me, and so that was December 13th, 2017. And so she then, that was when she said, you have invasive lobular carcinoma, which is breast cancer. And I spaced out and my husband asked all the questions and I was just there. And then the tears came and it was just, it's an emotional thing that it just kind of hits you.
Yeah.
And there's so many uncertainties in that your mind goes so many different places. Like I said, my mind went from zero to death, and it was like, what are the kids? What's going to happen to my kids? What does this mean? What are we going to do? All these things. On December 14th, which was the following day, the nurse had managed to get all the scans that I needed on one day. She was like, this never happens. And so I went in on the 14th and I spent the day in the hospital getting PET scan, CAN scan, MRIs. Then on the 15th, my Friday the 15th, my doctor calls and she says, all your scans came in. You do not have any metastasis. So the cancer has not spread to any other parts of your body.
Right.
So we know that we're just fighting in this one area. Great, wonderful. Saturday the 16th, my family and another family, we left on a vacation that we had planned a year prior to Turks and Caicos, and I left cancer in the United States for 7 days. Then the day that we landed, which was the 23rd of December of 2017, my phone just bing, 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 bing. I had all these messages. I was like, oh, here we go. We're back to reality. And so it was just, appointments to meet my oncologist, appointments to get blood work, appointments to get, we needed to get an echocardiogram of my heart. There's so many things that happen before you go into treatment.
Right.
And so I was meeting my oncologist on December 26th, the day after Christmas. And then on January 2nd, 2018, I started chemo treatments. So it was kind of a whirlwind, but I had an amazing support system. My parents, my family, friends in the community really helped make it so seamless for my family and me as we were going through this whole thing, this whole ordeal. And I kind of documented it on Instagram as I went through and kind of let people know how it was going, simply because I feel like my story is not mine to hold, but it is mine to share so that other people know that they can also do it if this becomes their reality. And so I spent the better part of 2018 in active treatments. I had a double mastectomy, which was supposed to be a double mastectomy with reconstruction. And I subsequently decided not to get reconstruction because I didn't want to go back into the number of surgeries that would come with reconstruction. I figured I didn't get any infections with the first surgery. I don't want to, tempt fate,
Yeah.
which it's something that happens. You can get infections and you have to go fix, there's so many things can happen. I just said, you know what? It's not worth it. I'm 50 years old. I think I'm good. My breasts did what they were supposed to do. My kids are good. So I think I'm all right. And so that's where we are. So now we're 4 years. Next year is 5 years, and I'm really excited about that.
You should
So
be.
far, so
That's
good.
great. That's great. I'm happy
Yeah.
for you.
Thank you.
Um, I don't know anybody in my personally in my life that's really had breast cancer of that type, but so it's just my grandfather, I think he died of stomach cancer, and so stuff like that.
Mm,
It just
mhm.
cancer just sucks. It just sucks.
It does.
And I don't back
I think we can all agree that
yeah, I
about
think most I mean, was there anything so, before 2017 and now that, that you've changed about yourself, like before cancer and after cancer? I mean, it seems like you got a great mindset about it. And I mean,
Yeah, I do sometimes think of my life as BC and AC. Um, I think that before cancer, I was constantly pushing. Like it was always like, I gotta, I need to, I was constantly pushing to do things and to find myself, where I wanted to be, which I wasn't even really sure where that was, right? After cancer, I don't push myself like that anymore. I do my work, but if I feel like I need to stop, I stop. If I
yeah,
need to feel like I need to just rest, take a nap, go get some water, do whatever, I'm done for the day, then that's what happens. I don't live with the mindset that I have to grind, and I have to go, and I have to be constantly doing something. And I think that's one of the major things that happen. The other thing is that I'm more intentional about the things that I do. I'm more intentional about who I'm with, and what I'm doing, and where I want to go. I'm more intentional with that. And I think that it's made all the difference also in terms of no longer pushing, but just going, this is where I'm going. This was what I can get done today. Tomorrow is a new day. I can get more done tomorrow. And even if I miss a deadline, I'm not as stressed about it as I used to be. I'm more like, you know what? That's okay. We can get it done by, and then I added new deadline, and I just kind of do it that way. And the other thing that I think that is different with me after cancer is the little things just don't matter. They just don't bother me anymore. Things can happen, and I'm much more in a place where I just go, huh, okay, so that happened. I don't I don't get as uh the important things are clearer, I think is the best way to explain it. The important things are clearer to me, and those things that are not going to matter like in a week, I don't get flustered about. Those things that aren't going to matter even tomorrow, I don't get flustered about. I'm just like, okay, this is all life. So we can
I
spend
love
it being really stressed out, or we can just spend it going, this is life. What can I learn as I go along this path?
yeah. Yeah, I love that. And just I wanted to say that it just hit me that I'm a CrossFitter. I don't know if you knew that, but every October we do a workout to raise money for breast cancer awareness. And
Oh,
yeah, so and
nice.
so during October it's always plays in my head and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, one thing is that I've slowly started learning is that we only get 24 hours in a day, right? And that's just like you said, you can spend it either being just working all day long and not paying attention to anything else, and or trying to divide up your time and use your time wisely. And
Yeah.
just like some people think, just because I feel like they're at the office all day or whatever, that they're actually working or whatever. But it's
They're not.
and like, well, are you? I mean, you literally spent 16 hours a day and you didn't stop
Right.
working. I mean,
Are you
yeah.
though?
It's like, it's like quantity over quality. And that's one thing
Yes.
I've actually learned. It's like, you wake up, maybe you can get all your shit done, as part of
Yep.
the bench in 4
Yeah.
hours. And like, I crushed it today. Now I'm
Yep.
able to go, like you said, go take a
That's
nap, go
right.
for a walk, go and have a great conversation with somebody.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's like we spend a lot of time being busy, And that's one thing too. I try not to say, people are like, oh, how are you doing? Oh, I'm so busy. That is like an automatic response because it is a status response in this country. Culturally, I think it is a status response. Oh, I'm so busy. So, oh, I'm so important. I've got so much to do. And I try not to use that anymore. Because honestly, if I'm honest, I'm not. And I choose not to be. I'm not moving my body and feeling like if I sit down to do work and I feel like I'm piddling, like, I'm doing this little thing, and I don't really have any focus, I'll get up and I'll walk away and I'm saying, probably right now is not the time that I should be working. Let me do something else. And then let me come back and see if it's clearer, if I can be more focused. So we spend a lot of time just piddling around, just doing things that make us feel like we're moving, like we're busy, but they're really not accomplishing anything. They're simply moving our bodies. And then it's like, I didn't really get anything done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I feel like you just touched on it. I mean, do you think that as what society and cultural, I guess, normalization has brought to the generation saying, like, hey, if you want to be successful, if you want to, grind and make $1 million, that you have to be constantly busy, and then you got TikTok stars over there, dancing and making millions. But I mean, is that just what, like, is this and put it into younger minds? And it was kind of input in my mind that, hey, you shouldn't be playing video games. Hey, you shouldn't be doing this. You should be out there working, making money, which I do
yes,
agree. You got to be making money, but 80 hours a week or whatever, which,
right.
you
Well,
know,
I think
I hope I said that right. I hope I didn't butcher that.
80 hours a week.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's 40 hours a week, but I mean,
Yeah, but some people
my
do
point was
actually
across
work
that point.
80 hours a week.
Yeah,
It
and
depends,
I met him. Yeah.
it depends on what you're doing. But if we're really honest with ourselves, uh, that working 80 hours a week for what?
Yeah.
Right? And we're socialized to believe that you work hard, you'll get ahead,
Right. I'm
right?
trying to say.
But there are so many people who work really hard every day in jobs that we do not value.
Yeah.
And so they still make the same amount of money. They're still in the at the level where they are.
Hmm.
And so I think it's a flawed mantra to say work really hard. No, why don't we work really smart
Mm.
instead? Right? Let's work really smart so that we can do more in less time, and then we can then allow our minds to think of other things that we would like to do. Maybe we want to donate our time. Maybe we want to start a new hobby. Maybe we want to learn something different, right? So I think that it's a flawed thing to say work hard, work hard. You got to grind. You got to really work hard. And people really take that to heart. And like you said, they work 80 hours a week, and maybe they're trying to make partner. But on that journey, here's the thing: we are not assured any days,
Damn right.
right?
Great.
I could be sitting here, you can be sitting there, and your roof caves in, and that's the end of you,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So and I know that there's this mentality out there, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead, or I'll do this, I'll do this for the next year or the next 2 years. But do you know that you're going to be here at the end of those 2 years, and you put everything off? You put off relationships, you put off things that you wanted to do. And then at the end of those 2 years, you get sick and die. And that's has happened. I have seen people work their whole lives waiting to retire. And then the day after they retire, they literally die. And it's like, why? Just, you have to have a way to give yourself some space and some grace and say, I'm going to work really smart. I'm going to focus really hard, but I'm also going to give myself the opportunity to have time for the people that matter and for the things that matter in my life. Because, like people say, no one is on their deathbed saying, God, I wish I had worked another 80-hour week. I missed that week.
I think you're 100% right. I mean,
Right?
well, I mean, what are your thoughts? I have a few people that I know personally, and they're older than me, but in my opinion, and I don't want to completely speak for them, but in my outside looking in, they have no other passions except work. And
Yeah.
and even the work they're doing might not be what they're truly passionate about. So, and it's almost, that they have this mentality is that there's never enough money. So I always have to keep working. And I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, is that just kind of just what we've been talking about that's just ingrained in everything?
Yeah. We're just, as a society, I think that, we have the warped idea about what success is.
Hmm.
Is success making this amount of money, or is success actually enjoying the life that you have and doing the things that you really want to do? When I started chemo, I started meditating,
Ooh,
and I made a very clear decision to meditate and to journal,
okay.
especially in the mornings.
What do you mean journal? Like a diary, or what do you?
Hmm.
Okay.
Because I wanted to make sure that I was doing everything I could to mitigate my stress, my anxiety, whatever I was feeling that would just cause me, that undertow of angst. I wanted to do as much as I could to alleviate that. So I meditated, I journaled, I colored in my adult coloring book with my daughter, by my side.
Done that
We
again.
would listen to music, we would have candles going. I took naps. So I really took the time to just kind of give myself that space. I have not stopped meditating. And I read and I journal in the morning. And the reason that I do those things is because all those things require me to slow down. Reading a book, a real book, requires you to slow down. we I don't know how many people notice, but we scan everything. We
Oh yeah.
scan, we scan, we scan.
Hmm.
We're flipping, we're flipping, we're flipping. We're just, we're constantly like next thing, next thing, next thing. When I first started reading again, because I'd love to read, but I'd stopped for a little while. When I first started reading again, I realized that I was scanning the book and I said, no, you have to stop. This isn't Instagram. This is not TikTok. You got to slow down. You got to figure out what's happening in this book. And so it pushes me to slow down when I'm writing longhand in my journal. It pushes me to slow down my thinking, slow down my everything, so that I can actually get a thought out. And all that slowing down in the morning when I'm waking up really helps me go into my day with a much better, calmer demeanor than, getting up, look at my email. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, headlines. Oh my God, all the things that we tend to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that doing that has also forced me to realize that it's not just important to slow down in the morning. It's really important to slow down during your day and savor that day and do the things, be intentional. There's a book that I really love. It's Essentialism by McEwen. Can't think of his first name.
Okay.
Um, but essentialism is basically focusing on the essential and letting everything else go. And we think that things are going to fall apart, but they're not.
Yeah.
They will not fall apart.
One time in college, in one of my English classes, we did this exercise, and our professor actually just told us to start typing. It was kind of like, well, basically kind of what you're saying, basically to start writing whatever comes to your head right there.
Yeah.
And as you keep writing, 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 just not weird thoughts, but just thoughts you probably never thought of really before, just start to take over. I mean, do you find yourself that
Yes.
you when you're journaling?
There are some days where I write 3 sentences, and then there are some days where I write 3 pages.
Okay.
There's something that I did years ago, and it's called the Artist's Way. And one of the things in the Artist's Way was to do morning pages. And basically, it was a stream of thought, getting it down on paper. So it didn't have to make sense. It just was writing the thoughts that came to your mind so that you could do this whole brain dump, basically clearing your mind of some clutter so that you would be clearer for the day. And I
Right.
find that that's what my journaling does. It's like I'll write, 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 write. Some days I wake up and I'm like, I really don't have that much to say. I'm so happy I woke up this morning.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Sure.
And then other days it's like, oh my God, do you know what happened yesterday? Blah, 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 you know, but every day is going to be different, but it helps to kind of get that off, get that brain dump, get that gone. And then you can kind of move in new. And then when you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember when I wrote this. Yeah. So it's just, I think that it's a good exercise for people to practice. It could be morning, it could be night, it could be whatever. Whenever it hits you, walk around with a journal. Whenever it hits you, you feel
Oh,
like you have to write something, go ahead and start writing. But you do get forced to kind of write when you're writing to slow things down. And so that's really also, the second part of that formula is slowing down, writing it down, getting it out.
You said earlier in the conversation that you meditate. I mean, is this part of your meditation practices, or I mean, do you meditate every day? I mean, I've tried to include that in my life more, and
Yeah.
it's kind of hard for me just to like we've been talking about, because if I get 10 minutes or whatever or 15, it's like I try to sit and relax and just silently just collect my thoughts and stuff. But then, you know,
Yeah.
I talked to somebody maybe last week. He said he did it for an hour and a half. I was like, man, I can't do
um,
an hour and a half. I need that. So, what are your meditation practices?
my meditation varies. So sometimes I'm listening to something that is meditative.
Okay.
I use an app. It's called
To that headspace or
Insight Timer.
oh, that's not okay.
Insight Timer. Yeah, I know Headspace and Calm. There,
Yeah,
there's
Colin, that's the
several.
one I was trying to think of. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's Insight Timer, and there are a number of teachers on there, and so different ones. They'll have courses. There's music. There's uh, bells, there's bowls, there's birds, there's ocean. There's so many different ones.
Yeah.
And so I've made it a practice to just kind of think to myself, what do I feel like today? And I may not feel like I can sit for 10 or 15 minutes but I can do 2 minutes. So sometimes I'll do 2 minutes. And it's really just focusing on whatever it is that I'm listening to and try to get my mind to focus on that as well. Sometimes I'll do 10 minutes and it's just focusing on that. But I haven't gotten to the hour and a half yet. I don't know that. I think I'll fall asleep. I haven't, haven't quite gotten there yet.
I agree.
But I think that's pretty amazing. But it varies. It just varies.
It does. I want to talk about your consulting work. But before we said that, you said something about success earlier, and like, what does success mean to you? I mean,
Success to me is being able to do the things that I want to do with the people that I want to do them with. So if it takes $100,000 a year for me to be able to do that, then I'm successful. I'm good. I'm fine. If it takes $70,000 to do that per year, then I'm good. I'm fine. I don't want to have to worry about money. I just want to be able to say, hey, you're doing that? Yeah, let's do that. Let me go there. Let me travel there. Let me take, last year I took my son to Germany and France over the summer. We went for 2 weeks, just he and I, and visited my cousin out there, but we traveled around. It was the best time. And prior to going, I had to actually give myself permission. I had to say, oh, but you can go. Because really the initial idea was to send him on his own, but the red tape became too much. And I was like, I'm just going to go with you. That just makes it easier. And it was great. And we weren't worried about the food we were eating or where we were going or what we were doing, we were fine.
Yeah.
And that's just how I want to be able to live my life. I want to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to go do this for a week. I'm going to go, take my sisters and I go on a sistercation every year
Sister
and
Kate.
say, yeah.
I like
So it's like, yeah, let's all go on a cruise, or whatever it is. But I want to just be able to do that. And that to me would be success. That to me is success. And I'm really excited about that. Now, if there's more, I'm good with that. But um, I don't know that I absolutely need all the more for me to feel like my life is successful. And, if I change a life along the way, that's that's even better.
that's part of life anyway. This one thing
Yep.
that stays constant that it seems to be always changing. So
Yep.
that's it. So all right, let's get a little bit about the consulting stuff. And so you said you work with small businesses. I mean, how does the process work? I mean, do they reach out to you? Do you just kind of seek them out, or what? Tell us.
A little bit of both. I think right now, I'm, I'm wanting to reach out to some businesses, but if they reach out to me, I'm more than excited because that just kind of cuts one step out for me. But when I engage with a small business, the idea is to get in there and the first step is always to audit, kind of take a look around and see what is happening within the organization and see how those things are creating a culture that may be attracting or detracting for the diversity that a lot of companies want to have. And also, it helps me to look and to see, are you say, if you say that you want to have a more inclusive, a more equitable, and a more anti-racist organization, how are you doing that, and are you really ready to put your strength behind that? So I go in and I kind of, I talk to a lot of people. I look at the ways that they do things, and then I give recommendations, and I can help support through those recommendations. There are different levels that I offer, but I can I can be there, or I can be hands off. I can say, hey, here, this is what you need to do. These are some of the things that I see here. You know, that's yours. So go ahead and see what you can do about that. Um, but like I said, I think we small businesses are the backbone of this country. Small businesses employ 50% of the population. And so,
Oh,
for a small business to think that they are not part of the conversation is not smart. A small businesses, if more small businesses understood the power that they hold to actually make a difference, I think we could see a huge shift if they were to say, you know what, we're going to make the difference. We're going to do things differently. Because we think of the huge companies, and we think that they're the ones who need to, because they're donating money to different causes and they're hiring people on and that sort of thing. Some small businesses can't always hire someone on. And so, but if you can get someone to look at what you're doing and to be there, kind of helping coach you along and kind of say, you might not want to do that, or you want to go this way, or, let's tap this person to help us with this, because, one person is not always going to have all the answers,
sure.
right? So doing that can make a huge difference in the industry. My thing is too, people talk about, oh, the industry is this way, or they talk about the company is this way, without really realizing their personal power individually that they have to change that because they are in the industry or in the company. If one person starts doing things differently and they stick to their guns, not saying that it's going to be easy, especially when you're going against the grain, but when you stick to your guns and you start doing things differently, people take notice, and other people will say, well, you know, if they're doing it this way, why aren't we doing it that way? And that's how change happens, right? Not everybody doing the same thing, but different people going, hey, why don't we do it that way? Let's try doing it this way and let's see what happens. And then, you know, we start a new trend, fashion, whatever it is.
Yeah. You know, one thing I just wanted to add was that I never really knew what consulting was back in, I guess, my younger days until I watched the movie Hitch with Will Smith, and when he was saying he was a consultant.
Yes.
And I was like,
I love that movie. That's
yeah,
one of
it's a
my
great movie.
favorites.
I think, you know, kind of underrated, but I was like, what the hell is consulting? And then, you know, that's when I first started to learn about consulting. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to throw that in. But what I wanted to ask was that, I mean, when, you know, these companies are coming to you and they're reaching out, I mean, you know, you're talking about trends. I mean, are you seeing like, all right, so this year we see this problem across this year, like, you know, one major problem, and the next year it changes just from the trend? I mean, is there certain major problems that come up all the time, year after year, or do you see new ones every 5 years, like you said, like fashion that repeats itself or whatever?
Well, so
History, maybe.
right now I can't really talk to trends so
Okay.
much,
Okay.
because, you know, what I'm just seeing is that, you know, companies right now, what I'm seeing is that companies want to make a change. They don't know how to do it. And a lot of what they think they need to do is very performative, and it's not getting to the crux of things. The other thing that I see is that companies talk a lot about diversity. We
Okay.
want more diversity. Diversity is important. And I'm not saying that diversity is not important. I think diversity is absolutely important. However, I also believe that diversity is an outcome. Diversity is the product of creating an equitable and inclusive culture and environment where people from diverse backgrounds are going to look and say, you know what, that looks like a place where I can bring my whole self to work, and they're going to be okay with that.
Yeah.
So it has to be an outgrowth of equity, building equity and inclusion within the culture that you already have with the people who are already there. And then being able to project that through your job postings, through the way that you project your company into the world, and people looking on and going, yeah, I think I want to work there. If you create fertile ground, you will get the diversity that you seek. But when you go out there and you're trying to get diverse people into your organization and you have not primed the situation for them, you have not created an environment that is going to retain them, they're going to be gone. And that's not what you want.
You know, a lot of companies, well, in my point of view, say that, you know, they won't change and, you know, they want to go into a different directions. But when change actually starts to happen, it seems that no, you know, we don't like this change anymore. And you start to get some, you know, backlash for it. I mean, do you ever notice that? I mean, does it get worse before it gets better when you finally start to, you know, come
Think
out with your goals in mind? Or
right. Well, you know what I think it is that people want to feel comfortable.
okay.
And when what we're doing or what you're doing is going against the grain, when what you're doing is shaking up the status quo, there's not a lot of comfort there.
Yeah.
And you have to be ready for that. It takes a lot. I say it all the time. It takes bravery, and it takes courage to be able to say, this is what we want to do. We know it's going to be hard. We know it's going to be uncomfortable, but we're going to do it anyway because it's the right thing to do. And unless there's that kind of commitment, sure, you know, there will be companies and say, yeah, well, we're not going to do that because that's too hard, or oh, it costs too much money, or there are
Yeah.
always excuses that can come in, always. It's the removing those excuses and saying, how can we? And then answering that question versus well, I don't think we can, and then answer and saying why,
Yeah.
right? It's a difference in mentality, in mindset. Even personally, it's in mindset. It's like, oh, I can't do that, or how can I do that?
Hmm.
Right? It's a huge shift in mindset, and it's the same for companies.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% because I mean, what's this talking? We just had the new year, obviously, and that people want to make new goals for themselves, new whatever, and that
Yep.
and I coach a couple of CrossFit classes a week on the side. But when people say they want that change, and this could be for companies too, and they come to that first road bump, whatever you
Yes.
want to call it, they're like, nah, I'm, and
Ah, it's not for
yeah,
me.
yeah, exactly. Like I'll just stick to my old ways, and they're afraid to. And I'm just generally speaking. I'm not speaking for everybody, and I'm just
Sure.
saying that they reach that one roadblock and they're like, they don't want to do the hard things to get the reward on the other side. Everybody
Right.
wants shortcuts, and I do too. And
Yeah.
uh,
Well, it's human nature. And I think really we've been socialized. I mean, we're so used to instant gratification. Oh, we ordered this today, it's coming tomorrow. We take a pill, we have no more pain. It's instant gratification. We want it when we want it. But all good things don't come that way,
no,
right? The best things are those things that come when we give them time to develop and to grow and to become what they need to be, right? To get past that hard part and you say, okay,
yeah,
I can do this. This is the thing, right?
yeah.
So
I mean, if it's really easy,
everybody would do
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. Everybody would do it. Then it's probably not worth doing. Is what
And we wouldn't have a problem, right? If it were
Yeah,
really easy, we wouldn't have a problem. Someone would, when I was 9 years old, I used to always think, why is it that people can't just listen to the person who's making sense and then go with that person? Like that was my, mentality. Why can't they just
yeah,
do that? You know, it just doesn't work that way. And because if it did, I think, what a different world it would
yeah.
be.
I mean, you said you work with. Did you say you work with mostly entrepreneurs or more?
Entrepreneurs and small businesses.
Okay, yeah, and so I mean, just for anyone, the only thing I've really done as far as entrepreneurship, I guess, is starting this podcast. But you reach a lot of roadblocks and you reach a lot of rock,
Yeah,
and it's hard to get over those. And just like but I could imagine trying to start a huge business or a small business right now. I mean, even with COVID and
it's
obstacles, but
so hard. And being an entrepreneur, going out on your own, doing your own business is really hard.
Mhm.
There are a number of times where I'm like, you know what, it would just be so much easier if I just went to a job and just got a regular paycheck and I'd just be, it would,
Yeah,
but then you have to think about why you're doing it, right? What is your why? What is your motivation for continuing to forge on and keep going? You
mhm,
have to have a really compelling why. Isn't that what Simon Sinek says? What is your why? You have to have a really compelling why as to what you're doing so that you can constantly go back to that why and say, oh yeah, that's right. Because there are pros and cons on both sides, but what is more, what's the balance for you? What tips the balance for you,
yeah,
really? And I always go, yeah, it would be easier to do that, but then someone would have control of my time. And I don't want that. Like right now, my life is very flexible, and that's what I need. And someone would have control over my time. They would tell me when I can go on vacation, would tell me when and if and how long I can be sick, or when and how long I can, go and take my kid to the orthodontist and to the dentist and to the, all these different things. I'd have to have a permission, get permission.
right,
And I'm not saying that those things are bad. I'm just saying that they're not for me. I've been there, and it's always the same frustrations that I get. So I have to constantly remind myself, no, that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is you want to do what you're doing right now because this is what works for you. So, suck it up.
Exactly.
you know,
Just suck it up. Let's do it. Yeah.
suck it up.
Just do it. So, and I'm glad you said that because that's kind of my mentality is that, I go in and like, I like to do a few different challenges and hard things just because when I do them that, it makes other things easier in life.
Mm-hmm.
So like as far as my workouts or, I gave up alcohol and caffeine during the month of October and stuff. And, that was not as hard as I thought it would be. Not having caffeine kind of sucked. But anyway, yeah, just like you said, to suck it up and just, do it. And, we talked about Will Smith a little bit ago, and he said a great quote one time is that, you lay a brick as perfectly as you can, right? And then you
Yeah.
do it again. And then you do it again. And you just keep
Yeah.
until you finally reach or build or whatever you want to do. And
Yeah, I'm almost done reading his book, and he takes that analogy from having to build a wall. His father made he and his brother build a
yeah.
wall. And so he had to find a way to kind of make it make sense, kind of make it, a challenge or, what have you. And that was what it was. You think of a wall and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a wall. What am I going to do with this wall? How am I going to do this wall? But when in reality, it's just putting down each brick, making sure that that brick is okay, and then putting down the next one. It's like, oh my gosh, this goal is so big. But you know what? There's so many steps before you get there. So just take those steps and kind of give yourself that
Exactly.
space
Yeah.
and time.
So I wanted to ask you, I mean, just in your opinion that, with COVID, we just talked about diversity, inclusion, and, racism a little bit that, what do you see as the future of, our society or the country or the world, whatever you want to say? I mean, like, are we going to hopefully see things get better and like this will just be known as just, okay, 20 whatever was kind of a rough part of history, but, we got through it.
Yeah. Well,
What are your thoughts?
I think, we,
I mean, working in your field and things.
yeah, there's always, there's a peak and then there's a valley. And because this work is hard and it does take dedication and it takes a lot of introspection and it takes a lot of kicking up of emotions and feelings and things that you didn't even know were there. And now you're realizing they're there and you feel like you're a bad person when you're not a bad person. We just have these, we all get these messages in different ways, the way that society is set up. And all of these things happen. And a lot of people fall off because it's like, I don't want to think about it. It's too much. I don't want to think about it. Right.
Yeah.
And that is a very real thing. And so, we see a lot of people go, oh my God, oh my God. And then they go, okay, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine.
Sure.
Right. I think we're getting to the it's fine phase, that valley phase where people are like, yeah, well, that happened, but that was then. And that guy went to jail and, all these things. And so now can we just move on? As if it were one event that would, mitigate the whole thing. But the nice thing is that I think that every time something happens, more eyes are open, more hearts are open, more people are going, oh, hey, yeah, something needs to happen. And so more people join the ranks and more people are making changes. So is there a lull? Yeah, there's a lull, but I feel like that's always going to be the case with anything. That's going to be the case. But I think that um, if we continue to have the conversations, people will join in as we go. And as we get more kids into the conversation, more of the next generation into the conversation, things will change. Things will, it's a gradual thing. We're still talking about things that Martin Luther King Jr. talked about 50, 60 years ago.
Definitely.
Right. There's some of those things that we're still talking about. I mean, why are we still talking about voting rights? And, it blows my mind. And people want to sweep that under the rug. They want to ignore that. They want to feel that the conversation is not the same. But in reality, in a lot of ways, it is the same. We shouldn't be having these same conversations now. We should fix them, get it done, and then move on. Right? Because there are a lot of other things that we can still fix. Right? So it's a process, it's a churning, and every generation has more of an opportunity. I know that my generation came right after the civil rights movement and all of that. And so there was a mindset there of, okay, we need to, let's chill. We need to uh, really assimilate. But I feel that my son's generation has language for transgender and gender fluidity and more, there are things that my son is talking about that I never even thought about when I was his age.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that because he's exposed to that and he's open to a lot of people, whereas I had to learn it later than he did. Mm-hmm. So if he's learning it now, that's progress. There's language for it. I had a woman on my podcast. She's a trans woman. She said growing up, she didn't have the language that she needed to express who she was. And now we have that language. So now more people can express who they are. So there's progress. As slow as it may seem, there is progress. But we just have to keep the pressure on so that more people can see and join the conversation so that it can become more widespread, wider and wider, and that there's a larger percentage of people who are like, yeah, some of these things need to change.
Well, I say we take this one home on that, the progress. Try to end this one on a good note.
Absolutely.
Great. I really appreciate you coming on here. I mean, you were great to talk to. I was really excited on you telling your cancer story. That was really informational.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun talking to you, Chris.
If people want to find your podcast, if you want to give out your social media or anything, just let them know.
Yeah, well, the best way now to find me is diversitydish.com. I have my podcast episodes there. I have my social links there. I also have my speaking and my consulting information there. So it's the best place to find me. So it's diversitydish.com. It's also the name of my podcast, Diversity Dish.
Easy enough. Great. All right. Well, again, let's take this home and thank you again. So
thank you.
Be good to yourself, people. We're out of here. She looks bad.